I checked my phone 3 times that morning. No missed calls. No texts. Not even the usual forwarded family chain message with dancing turkeys and glittering hearts. It was Mom's 65th birthday. She loved birthdays. She used to make her own cake every year, almond sponge with lemon glaze, even after her hands started trembling too much to hold the whisk steady. She'd joke, "If I don't bake it, it doesn't count." And I'd call by 8 a.m. sharp just to hear her pretend to be surprised. But this year, nothing, no word from anyone. No mention in the family group chat, just silence. I opened the group conversation. The last message was from 3 days ago, my older brother, Tyler, bragging about a promotion and my dad replying with a thumbs up. No mention of Mom's birthday plans. No mention of me. I typed, "Hey, are we doing anything for Mom today?" Seen by Tyler, Dad, Marcus, no reply. 10 minutes passed, then an hour, then lunch. I stared at my untouched sandwich, picked at the crusts. In the corner of my studio apartment, a half-finished canvas sat drying under the window. I'd stayed up until 2 a.m. finishing the final layer of a portrait. Mom in her garden, her hands mid-motion, reaching for a rose she'd never pick. I had it framed. I wrapped it in brown paper, tied it with a ribbon. It was sitting on my dining table like a gift with no address. By 2 p.m., my chest started to feel tight. Not panic, just something out of tune. Like I was the only person in the room hearing the music stop. I opened Facebook, scrolled absently past ads, acquaintances, photos of roasted turkeys and apple pies. Then I saw it, a post from Tyler. "Happy 65th, Mom." She still got the brightest smile in the room. Photo attached. Mom at a dinner table, wearing her pale blue cardigan, the one she saved for nice occasions. Candles, balloons. Both my brothers on either side of her, raising glasses. Even Dad smiling like nothing had ever been fractured. No tag, no invite, no mention. My throat went dry. Then I saw the comments. A neighbor wrote, "Hope she's okay. We're all praying for her." A former church friend. "Heard what happened, sending love." My fingers froze above the screen. I reread the post. No mention of anything going wrong, but something had. I didn't know what. I just knew I wasn't supposed to know. And that made it worse, so I stood, grabbed my coat, took the wrapped portrait off the table, and walked out into the cold with no plan, just a name in my chest that suddenly felt too fragile to speak. Mom. The drive to my hometown was 2 hours. I made it in 90 minutes. I didn't stop for gas, didn't stop for coffee, didn't even stop to ask why I wasn't on the guest list of my own mother's life. The wrapped portrait sat in the passenger seat, its ribbon coming loose at the corner. Every red light felt like a taunt. Every song on the radio sounded like a language I couldn't understand. When I pulled into the hospital parking lot, I didn't know for sure that she was there. I just knew. Like the way you know when a storm's coming not from thunder, but from silence. Inside, the air was thick with antiseptic and things unsaid. The woman at the front desk asked who I was visiting. "Lillian Langford," I said, my voice steadier than my hands. Her fingers tapped the keyboard. "Room 412. Intensive care unit. Visitors are limited, only family." "I'm her daughter." I said it quickly, like if I didn't, someone else would say it first and lock the door behind me. The elevator ride was slow. One of those creaky old lifts where you feel every floor. I counted the beeps like heartbeats. On the 4th floor, the hallway lights buzzed like tired wings. Outside room 412, the door was ajar. And there they were, my brothers. Marcus sitting, scrolling his phone. Tyler standing, arms crossed, chewing on a protein bar like it was a chore. Neither of them looked up when I arrived. "Is she?" I started. Marcus glanced up. "Stable. She fainted during the party." "Fainted?" My voice cracked. "Her heart acted up," Tyler added, not meeting my eyes. "It wasn't that serious, just precaution." I stepped past them, into the room, and saw her. My mother pale against the white sheets, oxygen tubes brushing her cheek. Her cardigan was wrinkled, one earring missing. Her hands folded neatly, as if someone had posed her like a memory. There was a birthday balloon tied to the bedrail. It swayed slightly when I walked in, like even it didn't know what it was still doing there. I sat down, took her hand, it was warm. Thank God it was warm, then I heard it. A low, fluttering breath, and a word barely above a whisper. Claire. My name, she hadn't forgot, even if they tried to. I held her hand tighter. Didn't speak, didn't cry. I just reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened Facebook again. The post was still there. 63 likes, 27 comments. I scrolled down. There it was, buried under a string of emojis. A woman named Lisa Dobson from Mom's old poetry club. She looked pale even before dinner. Hope you're keeping her warm. Then another comment, wish Claire had been there. Lillian asked about her just before the toast. I stopped breathing for a moment, just before the toast, just before she collapsed. She asked for me, and no one answered her, not with words, not with presence, not even with truth. They let her ask for me in a room full of people. And no one said I wasn't coming, because they'd made sure I didn't know too. My hand clenched around the phone. I looked at her again, my mother, who once cut apple slices into hearts when I had a bad day at school, who used to hum Debussy while folding laundry, who once held a sketchbook in her lap and said, Claire, the world will try to silence you. Draw anyway. She asked for me, and they answered her with silence. So now, I would answer for real. The room smelled like lemon disinfectant and old lilies, the kind of smell that tries to cover something up, but never quite succeeds. Mom's heart monitor beeped steadily, a fragile rhythm, a song barely holding itself together. I sat beside her, the hospital blanket pulled over her knees, one hand still in mine. She hadn't opened her eyes again, but I stayed anyway. Tyler peeked in through the door. You're still here, he said. I didn't look at him. Where else would I be? He shifted his weight. Dad went home, said he'd check in tomorrow. I nodded once, not because I agreed, just because I was done arguing with ghosts. Look, he said, quieter now. She's okay. The doctor said she just needs rest. She collapsed at her own birthday party, I replied, finally turning to face him. She was pale, out of breath, and no one thought to call me. He shrugged. Dad said you were probably busy. Busy, I laughed once, short. I was painting her birthday gift because I thought, stupid me. Maybe this year, I'd be allowed back in the room. Tyler's jaw twitched. You know how things are. You and Dad don't exactly see eye to eye. Since when does that justify hiding a medical emergency? Silence. Then Marcus appeared behind him, holding a bottle of Coke he must have bought from the vending machine down the hall. You're being dramatic, he said, and that broke something in me, not loudly, not violently, just enough for the cracks to start spreading. I stood, walked toward them, stopped just at the edge of the doorway where the hallway light sliced across the floor. Tell me something, I said. Who's been paying for her prescriptions these past 6 months? Tyler blinked. What? The heart meds, the cholesterol drops, the physical therapy sessions she never missed. Who signed the checks? Neither of them answered. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the folder titled Receipts for Mom, held up the screen. Here, I said. July, August, September, all automatic, all from my care account. Marcus squinted. You made an account for that. No, I made a commitment, because someone had to. Because while you were buying Dad a new fishing boat for Father's Day, she was reusing tea bags to save money. Tyler looked down. I took a breath. It shook. But I didn't. She asked about me before she passed out, didn't she? Neither of them spoke. Did she ask out loud, or just quietly enough that you thought you could ignore it? Still nothing. That was answer enough. I stepped back inside, closed the door behind me, softly, like closing the final page of a story I never agreed to be written out of. Then I turned to my mother, still sleeping, still fighting, and I whispered, I'm here, and I won't leave this time, even if they already did. She didn't stir, but for the first time all night, her hand curled slightly in mine, a twitch, a fragment of will, and I knew then, even unconscious, she was still reaching for something, maybe me. I left the hospital just past midnight. The halls had gone quiet, the vending machines humming like lullabies for the lonely. Tyler and Marcus didn't say goodbye, didn't even look up when I passed the waiting room. The parking lot was cold. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't cry. The framed painting still sat in the passenger seat, its ribbon now fully undone. It looked like a gift that had waited too long to be given. I didn't drive home. I drove to Mom's. The porch light was off. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just grown in all the ways they never saw. I still had the spare key. The same one I used to use when I'd come home late from high school art club, and Mom would already be asleep on the couch, book half open on her chest. The lock clicked open like muscle memory. Inside, the air was still warm, too warm. Mom always turned the heat up when she had company. Maybe she thought I might still come. The table was cluttered with birthday cards. None of them had my name on them. In the kitchen, half a cake sat untouched. Almond sponge, lemon glaze, she made it anyway. I stood there for a long time, then walked into the study. The room hadn't changed since I was a child. Same floral curtains, same dusty globe that never turned, same bookshelf. Third shelf down, wooden box, locked with a brass latch she thought was clever. She once told me, "That's where I keep things that matter." I opened it. Inside were folders, each labeled in Mom's delicate script. Medical. Utilities. Claire. My breath hitched. I opened the last one. Inside, printouts of every care account transfer I'd ever made, even the small ones. Even the months I skipped. Each one had a note in blue ink beside it. Covered meds. PT paid. Tell Claire thank you. Next time remember. Don't let her feel forgot. Then I saw it, a folded check, never cashed. Made out to me, $1,200 for her birthday. Dated 3 years ago, back when I stopped coming home. Back when I said, I don't want gifts from people who don't see me. She never tore it up. She never threw it away. Underneath was something even more fragile, a list handwritten not for anyone's eyes but her own. It read, Tyler handles Dad's taxes. Marcus calls once a week, sometimes. Claire the quiet one, the brave one, pays more than she should, never asks for credit. And then, underlined, protect her from their noise. I sat down, box on my lap, heartbeat in my ears. For years, I thought I was erased. But she was trying to protect me, and in doing so, she let them erase her too. That's when it hit me, they hadn't just kept the party from me, they'd kept her from herself, wrapped her in silence, tucked her into the background of her own life, until she collapsed under the weight of it. And I had the proof, every receipt, every note, every quiet attempt at saying, I see you. I looked at the list again, then slowly added one line beneath it. Claire's coming home. I stayed in the house until the sky turned pale. The kind of gray that blurs the line between night and morning. No sleep, just the soft shuffle of memories settling into place. The wooden box now sat open beside me on the couch, its contents spread out like puzzle pieces waiting to be named. I went back into the study. Carefully, quietly. Not because anyone was home, but because some silences deserve reverence. Mom's old filing cabinet still lived in the corner, tucked behind the curtain no one ever drew. Second drawer, finances. Third drawer, health. I reached for both. She had saved everything. Neatly labeled folders, chronologically arranged. Each year got its own binder. Each binder had tabs. Each tab had significance. She had organized her life like someone who knew she might one day need to prove she wasn't a burden. And there, under the folder labeled care contributions, I found the trail. Not just my deposits, but their withdrawals, Marcus, Tyler, even Dad. Mom had written notes in the margins of the printouts. Marcus, temporary loan for car tires. Never returned. Tyler asked for $2,000 until the bonus hits. Still waiting. Greg, Dad, transferred $700 from my account for groceries. Bought a smoker grill. The handwriting shifted on later pages, shakier, slower. But the notes didn't stop. Claire's $500 used for dental. Claire covered PT after insurance denied claim. Claire's gift saved me from canceling appointments. I sat back in the chair. The papers rustled in my lap, but the rest of the house felt motionless. Like even the walls were listening. She had tracked it all. Not with resentment, but with clarity, like she knew the day might come, when the truth would need to speak louder than anyone else in the room. And then I found the one that broke me, a document titled, Joint Medical Contribution Plan. It was signed by all of us, or rather supposed to be. I recognized my own signature at the bottom. I remembered the day I signed it, 4 years ago. Back when they said we'd all chip in equally for Mom's health care. But Marcus and Tyler never signed. Neither did Dad. Only Mom had signed next to mine. And above her name, she wrote, "Claire kept her word, the others made excuses." Underneath that, stapled to the back, was a spreadsheet, handwritten, updated monthly. It tallied every dollar I'd sent, every visit I'd made, every package I mailed when I couldn't be there in person. It ended with one final line, circled in red ink. "If something happens to me, Claire deserves to know the whole story." I sat there, hand trembling over that line, knowing what I had now. Not just evidence, not just records, but truth. The kind of truth they couldn't deny. The kind that didn't scream, it simply stood still, and dared them to lie in front of it. I hadn't stepped into Mom's bedroom in years. Not since the day I left without hugging her. Not since I said, "If I'm always going to be the disappointment, at least let me do it out loud." But this time, I opened the door with a steady hand. The room smelled like lavender oil and old paper. Her favorite mug still sat on the nightstand, faded blue with the words, "Mothers raise children, daughters raise the world." The bed was made, sheets tucked with hospital precision. It was the one place in the house where chaos never entered. Except, there it was, leaning against the wall beside the dresser. Still in its mailing box. Still wrapped in the same brown craft paper I'd used when I shipped it 2 years ago. The painting, the one I had poured my apology into, not with words but with brushstrokes. A portrait of Mom in her favorite chair, surrounded by morning light and unopened books. The way I remembered her before everything started cracking. I knelt down, pulled the tape loose. Inside, the frame was intact, the glass unbroken, and behind it, tucked in like a secret, was something I didn't expect, a note, folded, unsent, taped to the back of the canvas. In Mom's careful handwriting. "Claire, I never hung this, not because I didn't love it, but because I was afraid it would make the others see too clearly. Afraid they'd ask why you painted me smiling when I hadn't in a while. Afraid they'd see that you saw me when they refused to. I kept it here, close. I'd unwrap it when I missed you, and wrap it back up when I couldn't explain why. Forgive me for trying to protect the wrong things. I thought silence would keep you safe. Love. Mom." I sank to the floor, the note still in my hands. Not crying, not yet, but feeling something break. Not like glass, but like dawn. She had unwrapped it, she had seen it. She had read what I painted between every line, and she'd tried to answer me, just never sent it. That painting wasn't forgotten. It was treasured. Hidden but held. And suddenly I realized, Mom had been living between two worlds. One where she was everyone's symbol, and one where she could be herself. I picked up the frame. This time it was coming out of the shadows, not to be praised, not to be explained, but to take its place like her. In the light, I returned to the hospital that afternoon, carrying the painting, the note, and the weight of every silence I had mistaken for absence. The nurse nodded as I passed the station. "Your mom's more alert today," she said with a small smile. "She keeps asking if you're still here." "I'm not going anywhere," I replied, but before I could reach Mom's room, I heard voices, low, clipped, anxious, Marcus and Tyler, standing outside room 412, whispering with their heads close like schoolboys caught cheating. When they saw me, they stiffened. Tyler spoke first. "Claire, wait, we were just about to update you." I held up a hand, not to stop them, but to give them the chance to lie only once. "Don't bother," I said. Then I opened my bag and pulled out the folder, receipts, notes, the signed medical agreement, the spreadsheet, the letter Mom had taped to my painting. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. They glanced at each other, said nothing. "It's proof," I continued, voice steady, "that you didn't just forget me. You drained her, you used her. And then you tried to erase the only person who showed up for her." Marcus scoffed. "Claire, that's not fair. We never asked her to." "No, you didn't ask," I cut in. "You just took, and when she couldn't carry it anymore, she collapsed. And even then, you didn't call me." Tyler stepped forward, his voice softened like that would help. Look, we were just trying to keep things simple. You always make it emotional. I blinked. Emotional. I reached into the folder again, pulled out Mom's handwritten note. Forgive me for trying to protect the wrong things. I handed it to him. He read it, didn't speak. She saw what you were doing, I said quietly. She just didn't want to believe it. Marcus tried to take a step into the room. I blocked him. She's awake, he asked. I nodded. But she's not ready for you, and I'm not going to let you use her exhaustion as another excuse. Tyler's face turned hard. Claire, she's our mother too. She was. I didn't raise my voice, didn't need to. She was when you showed up for her, not just in photos, not just on birthdays, but in the way you failed her when it counted. They stood still, two men in expensive coats. Looking small under hospital lights, I stepped closer. She asked for me when she collapsed, not because I'm better, but because I stayed, because I gave, because I never needed her to be perfect to be loved. A silence stretched between us, one they couldn't fill with excuses. I'm not here to forgive you, I said. I'm here to protect her. Then I opened the door, stepped inside, and shut it. Gently, like closing a chapter only I had the right to write. That night, I slept on the recliner next to Mom's bed. She didn't say much. Didn't need to. Sometimes she'd squeeze my hand mid-dream, like she was still afraid I'd vanish if she let go. I stayed, not out of duty, but because there was finally nothing left between us that needed translation. By morning, the brothers were gone. No knock, no final word, just an empty chair in the hallway and a coffee cup still half full. I walked out to the waiting room, opened my phone, and quietly removed myself from the family group chat. 1 second, a swipe, and years of background noise fell silent. No more forwarded memes, no more performative updates. No more pretending I was part of a system that only remembered I existed when it was convenient. Then I opened my banking app, scrolled to the care account, paused, over 2 years of quiet contributions. Rent skipped, late-night commissions, freelance gigs no one knew I took. I clicked Edit Permissions, revoked access from every name but mine, then renamed the account Lillian's Light, because that's what she had been, even when no one else could see it. Even when she was dimming to keep the rest of them comfortable. I closed the app, breathed in the sterile air of the corridor, and smiled just barely. Later that afternoon, I returned to the house. Not for closure. For clarity. I walked through each room like I was exorcising ghosts. Found Dad's old family portrait still hanging above the fireplace. Him in the center. Tyler and Marcus flanking either side. Mom seated like a placeholder. Know me. I took it down, laid it face down on the dining table, and replaced it with something else. The painting, the one I'd made her, the one she never hung. Not because she didn't love it, but because she loved too carefully. I hung it for both of us now, centered, lit by the afternoon sun spilling through the window, undeniable. That night I packed my things, clothes, sketchbooks, books I'd left behind, but not all of them. Some I left on the kitchen counter. The ones Mom used to read aloud when we both couldn't sleep. With a note, keep these close. You deserve stories that remember you. Then I locked the front door and drove back to the hospital. Back to the only home that had never asked me to apologize for who I was becoming. It was exactly 1 year later. No invitations, no group chat, no fake smiles for the camera. Just a soft breeze drifting through the courtyard of Rosehaven Adult Center, the scent of fresh lavender, and the gentle clatter of teacups being set on mismatched saucers. Mom sat near the fountain, a wool shawl draped over her shoulders, a sun hat slightly askew. She didn't care. She was smiling. This time, not for anyone else's comfort, but for her own. Behind her, strung between 2 oak trees, was a hand-painted banner that read, Lillian's 66th, bloom anyway. No balloons, no DJ, just her students from the watercolor class she now taught once a week, nurses, volunteers, a retired florist named June who brought her a bundle of ranunculus wrapped in newspaper, and me, not as a guest, as her daughter. Present, permanent, I wheeled out the cake. It was smaller this time, Lemon glaze again, but topped with violets and sprigs of mint. Homemade. Not by me, though, by Mom. She insisted on baking it herself, with help from the center's kitchen staff. Because, as she'd said with a grin, if I don't bake it, it doesn't count. I lit the candle, just one, not to mark her age, but to mark her year of rising. She didn't blow it out right away, just stared at the flame for a while. Then she turned to me and whispered, "Thank you for not letting me disappear." "I never could," I said. Across the lawn, her painting now hung from an easel, the one I'd given her, the one that had waited too long to be seen. This time, it wasn't hidden behind a door. It wasn't leaned against a wall. It stood in the open, sunlight catching the gold in her hair, brushstrokes blooming in public for the first time. After the cake, someone brought out a violin. A teenage boy from the community center, nervous, shaking, but the moment he played Claire de Lune, Mom closed her eyes, and for a moment, I saw her as I always had. Before the silence, before the betrayal, before the collapse, Lillian Langford, my mother, not just someone's wife, not just a placeholder in someone else's legacy, but a woman in full. At the end of the party, I handed her a small package. Inside, a copy of a handmade book. Sketches, letters, notes. Its title stamped in gold leaf, The Birthday She Deserved. She traced the words with her fingertips. Didn't say anything, she didn't have to. Later, as the sun dipped behind the roofline, we sat side by side under a string of fairy lights. No music, no speeches, just the quiet of belonging, the kind of quiet that doesn't hurt anymore. They say homes hold echoes, laughter in the walls, secrets in the floorboards, but truth needs space, it needs to be seen. 6 months after Mom's birthday, Rosehaven opened a new wing, a small, sunlit gallery between the library and the community room. They called it the Reflection Hall, but to me, it was something else. It was where I hung the portrait, framed in reclaimed oak. No plaque, no donation name, just a title etched into the bottom of the glass. She stayed standing. Beneath it, a quote in Mom's handwriting. I thought silence would protect me, but my daughter taught me how to speak again. Every week, new artwork joined the wall. Pieces from the other residents, from students in Mom's class, from people who'd once been told their stories were too quiet. And beside each piece, a small label not with their names, but with a memory, painted after surviving a stroke. First drawing since my wife passed. Started at 72, still learning. People stopped to look, some left notes, some left tears, but they all saw something they weren't expecting. Not talent, but truth. One afternoon, I brought Mom there in her wheelchair. She wore her green tie again. No reason, just felt like it. She sat beneath her painting, hands folded, eyes soft. They hung it, she said quietly. I smiled. No, I said, you did. We sat there a long time. She waved at visitors, laughed with June, held a little boy's hand when he pointed at her portrait and asked if she was famous. No, she said, but I'm finally visible. Back at her room, I helped her settle into bed. She reached out for the copy of The Birthday She Deserved that always sat on her nightstand. Then she looked at me, not as someone fragile, but as someone found. I never thought I'd feel like I belonged to my own story, she whispered. You always did, I said. They just cropped you out. That night I stayed at Rosehaven, worked late in the shared studio, adding the final strokes to a new series, portraits of forgotten matriarchs, mothers, grandmothers, aunts, caregivers, women who gave everything, and were thanked with silence. I called the series The Wall of Truth, because some stories don't need revenge, they just need a frame. And this time, no one would dare look away.